You know, Zack Knight, after I signed my treaty with Zack Knight with the Jesuits in November 2012, I actually noticed an increase in Jesuit-style attacks against me. I told Brent about this, and he stated that to his amazement, when these criminals were arrested, they claimed that they were not Jesuits and were furious at me over my raunchy new music at Church of Gail, and because I had abandoned my King James only position and now promoted and allowed satanic Bibles like the New American Standard, New International Version, and New Living English translations as part of our Church of Gail service, and that they felt justified to pollute my air with extra pollen and to harass and hound me as I drove to go shopping and whenever I ventured outside my apartment. I actually noticed an increase in criminal harassment after we signed the peace treaty with the Jesuits. The only difference between the harassment I received after the treaty and the harassment I received before the treaty is that the methods used were of a style that could be attributed to the Gail android, exclusive of the Jesuits, and lacked distinct Jesuit characteristics like using a nukkake or drug rape or bukkakis or their flagrant sexual crimes. However, they did use extensive computer crimes and air pollution techniques, surveillance and spying, defamatory websites, invasion of privacy like stealing my private photos and videos from my family, like my men or my family, and posting these online, email hacking, black ninja attacks to murder Vladimir Putin, as Vladimir attempted to remove viruses and malware and corruption from my computer, attempted murder, suicide-style attacks, and were as difficult to beat in court as the Jesuits. These King James only fanatics seemed to commit crimes they could easily cover up, just like a Jesuit when we brought them to court, lying and saying that the nude that paraded around online, that I willingly and knowingly gave that to Zack Knight, and that's how they got it. Though I find it believable that Peter Ruckman, who's a very important leader in the King James only movement, would burn Bibles in our Church of Gail service that were not King James, almost setting our church on fire, I find it hard to believe that a true King James onlyist would stoop so low as to become part of murder conspiracies or computer hacking to introduce viruses and corruption into my computer, or would send a ninja all dressed in black to attack Vladimir Putin and try to kill him because he's working on my computer to remove viruses and corruption and malware. You know, as a former King James only person myself, I know that when I believed like this, I may have accused those who opposed me of being demon-possessed, and may have insinuated they were satanic, but I would never have harassed, tried to murder them, or pollute their air, and I most certainly wouldn't have introduced viruses or corruption into their computers, or even thought about doing that, or harassed them for their beliefs. You know, the way I was before when I was a King James only person was if I sensed greatness in a person, I overlooked differences and worked with what I had with that person. And I would establish common ground and the similar goals that we shared and the passion we would share for truth, love, and justice, and would not make a big issue over the use of alcohol, music, or even Bible versions. I was a member of the church of a King James only church, and the pastor said that people can get saved from Bibles besides the King James, and we need to work with people where they're at and not try to shove our King James only beliefs down people's throats. You know, I did this because this is what my heart told me to do, even though my head said that maybe I'm a little too lenient and perhaps maybe was compromising against the truth. However, I sensed deep down inside that Jesus up in heaven approved of my heart attitude towards people who differed from me in certain religious practices, but who manifested a vast and tolerant spirit full of love and eager to forgive and eager to believe in the best in others. Somehow I sensed that even though this might have gone against some of the rigid religious teachings that I'd been brought up with, that Jesus smiled on my approach, that I would tolerate those who had different religious practices from me if I sensed they had a vast spirit. In fact, I was so willing to embrace those who differed from me in some religious practices that I was willing to marry those who differed from me in practice, but who had my spirit, like Brent Spiner and Vladimir Putin. So why do I go into all this? This is to show that I believe that if somebody's a true born-again Christian, as well as a King James only believer, that this person, even though they might be furious at me because they feel I've apostatized from a true Christian or biblical stand, I don't think they would go to the extremes that the King James only criminals have done with me in the past months. Would they send a ninja to murder Vladimir Putin because he tried to repair my computer from viruses and corruption? Would they deliberately send viruses and malware to my computer to try to make my computer crash? Would they hack into my computer and rewrite emails to my men and stop some from being delivered from them to me and from me to them? Would they pollute my air so thick with pollen, wearing a hazmat suit to pull out pollen and throw it into the air just outside my apartment, making me so sick with allergy that I had to run to the bathroom with diarrhea attacks every half hour until the pollen count went down? I would think that if I was outraged over Gail's apostasy away from the King James Bible, that I'd want all the world to know that I had nothing to do with corrupt Roman Catholic leader Zack Knight, and I wouldn't commit suicide with cyanide capsule like this King James only person did who was rewriting my emails to Brent. We caught him. He was carrying a big King James Bible, but before we could get to him, he swallowed a capsule with cyanide and killed himself. He had hacked into my email, was rewriting my emails to Brent and my men, and making me appear like somebody I wasn't. Wouldn't you want us to read your mind and memories to know how outraged you were over Gail's Roman Catholic apostasy away from the King James Bible? Well, they claim all the corrupt Bibles out there are Roman Catholic Bibles, that the King James is the only one that isn't, and that you had nothing to do with the Jesuits, who you claim are the authors of all the corrupt Bibles. Why kill yourself with cyanide? Unless you are a secret Jesuit, maybe? Posing as a King James only believer? Is that a possibility? While the King James only movement is a type of a cult, in that you can't reason with these people with the facts because they've got their mind made up, they're not like Jim Jones, which, by the way, was a Jesuit organization, where they all committed mass suicide. You know, there really aren't that many King James only believers in the world. And yet this conspiracy operates with the efficiency of the Jesuit order and as if they had the same numbers. The only difference between the King James only attacks and the Jesuit attacks is that so far they haven't used bukkake, or flagrant sexual crimes against me, which have been characteristic of the Jesuits. However, posting a still from my private nude video online for the whole world to see is a form of rape, invasion of privacy, and defamation, typical Jesuit crimes. You know what I think? I am really starting to think, after observing these people for several months, first of all, since I've signed this treaty with the Jesuits, nothing has changed as far as my life. The only area where I seem to be getting a reprieve from former Jesuit crimes against me is they no longer use flagrant sexual crimes against me or my men, which Jesuits are famous for, you know, drug rape and all that stuff. However, that has ended now because Zack Knight has gone to court and to CNN with lies, stating that I secretly desired him the whole time when I signed this contract and really wanted to sign that sneaky contract with him to allow him to brain-to-brain rape me. So now it looks like nothing has changed at all. You know what else I think? I am beginning to think that from the very beginning, these King James only criminals who have attacked me have done so under Zack Knight's direction. You know, now that Zack Knight is going after me sexually, the attacks I experience now don't differ at all from what I got before I signed this treaty with Zack Knight. I'm still dealing with the same sabotage, treachery, lying, sneakiness like I did when I thought I was only dealing with Jesuits. You know what I think? I think Zack Knight's playing a game, pretending like he's not attacking me, or he has not been attacking me recently since we've signed this treaty. But he's done it underground through his King James only Jesuits. Let's give him the proper name. They're the King James only Jesuits. These are Jesuits who've been trained to appear as King James only believers, while their true belief is Jesuit. Jesuits are famous for this. They infiltrate all religious ranks, posing to be what they are not, in order to gain inroads with which to attack their enemies, often posing as having the religious faith of the very enemies they oppose. Yet, despite my brilliant arguments and videos defending my new position against King James onlyism, these fanatical King James only criminals refuse to budge, defying all reason like a fanatical Jesuit, and continue to use Jesuit fanatical styles against me. They're just Jesuits with a different title. Brilliant Zack Knight has even allowed his own second-in-command, Rule 13, to be in the dark about these King James only Jesuits, even allowing her to kill some of them who have attacked me. What a brilliant cover-up, so that he can convince the world that he has nothing to do with him. Sly Antichrist. But I will say this much, he's not a complete hypocrite for sponsoring the King James only Jesuits, because I believe that when he rules the world as the Antichrist, he's going to make the King James Bible his official Bible, claiming that the King James Bible is God, based on John 1:1, and that he, Zack Knight, is Jesus Christ, or the Word, W capitalized, as in John 1:1. And he's going to incorporate King James Bible worship as part of the worship of himself as Jesus Christ, and that those who do not worship the King James Bible as God must be executed. This explains the ninja who went after Vladimir Putin. But would a true King James only born again Christian execute people to enforce his beliefs? I don't think so. I believe those who attack me as King James onlyists are not true King James onlyists in their heart, but are deadly Jesuits posing as King James only believers. Can't you see Zack's in rehearsal for his grand Antichrist performance in the future, where he's going to claim that the King James Bible is God, and that those who don't worship it as himself must die? When the real Jesus Christ comes to rescue the world from the Antichrist, guess what he calls himself in Revelation 19:13? The Word of God, singular and capitalized. When Jesus shows up in Revelation 19:13, he's going to say, "Hey, world, I'm here to rescue you from Zack Knight, who claims to be me in the form of the King James Bible. Hey, I want you to know that only I am Jesus Christ, or the Word of God of John 1:1. The Word of God singular is a person, not a Bible. No Bible can be God because no translation can perfectly capture with words what I have to say. In John 1:1, the Word of God is me, Jesus Christ myself." In fact, Jesus is going to be so angry about everybody worshiping the King James Bible as himself, thanks to Zack Knight. You know, he's good at conducting political campaigns. Like, look what he went on CNN and convinced everyone that I wanted him. He's gonna do the same thing, probably go on CNN and convince everyone he's Jesus Christ one of these days. You know how he's gonna Jesus is gonna be so mad about this. You know how he's gonna destroy the Antichrist? He's gonna put a title over himself called the Word of God. Revelation 19:13 says it. And that's why he uses a sharp sword that comes from his mouth to conquer the Antichrist as the Word of God, using the sword of the Spirit, Ephesians 6:17, which is the Word of God coming from his mouth. Yes, the Word of God, or Jesus Christ, will defeat Zack Knight at the Battle of Armageddon as the Word of God, capitalized and singular. Jesus will destroy the fake Word of God, Zack Knight, as the real Word of God, the real Jesus, in all the good translations. Read Revelation 19:13 in the final battle. You know, the King James Bible is a great translation that contains the words of God, Psalm 12:6 and 7, but it's not the Word of God, who is Jesus Christ himself. So why will Jesus defeat Zack as the Word of God? It must be because Zack's going to claim to be the Word of God of Revelation 19:13, with the King James Bible his official Bible. Oh, will that make him believable? Hey, Zack, I challenge you to refute what I say here. Claim that you have nothing to do with those King James only people, criminals on lie detection. Yes. You know, I've actually had several of these King James only people call me the wife of Jesus Christ. But I'm going to be his wife as part of the church. No other way. Man,